For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
Back again on Mammoth Daily. Mike Fulta and Adrian Denny here with you. We're your Hockey Night in Utah radio crew. And AD, the NHL Draft starts tomorrow at 5 o'clock Mountain Time out in Western New York in Buffalo KeyBank Center, where the Mammoth will be drafting 19th overall. AD, no, this is not the same shirt as last episode. They did give us multiple special Olympic shirts that I get to wear along with this awesome hat. And we are staying on the University of Minnesota's campus. Can see the ghost of Logan Cooley walking around here. But I ate at a food court tonight for the first time since college. And let me tell you, we need more food courts. That place was awesome.
I've always been a food court guy, Mike. In fact, the other day was getting some furniture changed out, and I found a receipt, Mike, from March of 2007 from the Valley Fair Mall. I got a hot dog on a stick with a cheese cup and fries and a lemonade.
We call that a corn dog where I'm from.
Mike, I've got the receipts from being a big food court guy.
Are you a fetch guy? You like take pictures of all your receipts and submit them and get points and stuff like that?
No, this was way back in the day, Mike. I must have just gotten home from a long day at the old East Center, as it was back in the day. Had a receipt in my pocket, dropped it on the nightstand. It ended up in the nightstand, and lo and behold, found it. Almost 20 years later, Mike.
Well, I'm glad you're finally getting to some spring cleaning here, just a few days after the summer solstice. But AD, we got the draft tomorrow. We're talking to Mike Morreale. We're going to do a Thursday expert show with Mike. Great conversation. We considered breaking it up into two parts because it was so juicy, but so much news came down last week that we decided to shove it all to today. So it's a loaded conversation with Mike. But Adrian, we're focusing on the draft in this episode. I know there's a lot of news going around the NHL the last few days, but what do you think are the biggest storylines of the NHL draft starting tomorrow with round one?
Mike, it seems like Gavin McKenna is a foregone conclusion to be selected first, but earlier in the week, Mike, we saw some moves. We saw the draft really started with some picks moving. So I guess, Mike, we've seen a lot of action going into the NHL entry draft, and I think that's probably what moves the needle for Mammoth fans the most, with Utah selecting 19th. What kind of moving and shaking are we going to have? Mammoth making a trade last year before the draft, getting JJ Peterka, but what's to come in terms of moves, especially with the cap going up, with not a large free agent crop? I think that's where I'm looking as we take a look at some storylines going into the draft. What happens in addition to the draft?
Some pretty good picks have been made in Buffalo by players going first overall. Eric Lindros, Vinny Lecavalier, Austin Matthews. 3 guys to go first overall in Buffalo that, they all turned out okay. How about that?
Western New York, Mike. It's a hockey hotbed. Returning to the playoffs and hosting the draft, and they've had some good moments. Buffalo hosting the draft, not where they've usually been in the draft, Mike. Though they did move up 7 spots with that Michael Kesselring deal. So the fans in attendance at the decentralized draft gonna not have to wait as long for their pick.
And it's interesting, they traded to the pick right behind Utah's 19th. And so that's you would think that same tier of player that they think that they can get compared to Utah at 19. You were mentioning trades, AD, as kind of the big storyline. Last year, all the hype was about how crazy the draft was going to be. We were hyping it up on not this show, because it did not exist yet, but on social media, on other platforms, other pieces of content, and we got almost nothing throughout the draft. So I went back and looked. You can go back and look on Puckpedia. That's what I used. From the day before the draft. So I'm not even talking about the 2 days of the draft. I'm doubling our window. I'm going from the day before the draft until the day after the NHL draft. There were 29 trades made. That sounds like a lot. Only 9 of those trades included actual NHL players. For example, the Mammoth acquired an extra 6th-round pick in exchange for a 6th-round pick this year. So there were a bunch of trades like that in the lower rounds. But only 9 trades included actual established NHL players. The biggest one, probably Noah Dobson to Montreal. You also had Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood to Columbus in exchange for Gavin Brindley and picks. That was a deal with Colorado, and John Gibson went to Detroit. But other than that, AD, there's almost nothing.
We always look at what could happen, Mike, but how often does nothing happen? But with Trader Bill, Mike, you just never know what could happen. He's been active on draft weekend and around it both years that Utah has existed in the NHL. Mikhail Sergachev, John Marino were drafted on the second day of the draft. Peterka right before the draft, as we were all playing bocce ball at Dominic Moore's house after having our pizza party following our draft meeting that you could attend, Mike. So
June 26th, how about that? It's the day of our draft this year. That was the day last year where JJ Peterka was dealt.
And you were nice enough to make us pizzas with Sarah Merrifield. So we celebrated with pizzas. So, but Bill has been active around draft night. Got it done a little earlier. So we'll see. Utah's got that 19th pick, Mike, already this week. We've seen, contending teams move around some picks. Florida with the blockbuster deal, getting Brady Tkachuk. So I think that's what we're watching, Mike. Should Utah make a deal on Friday and not have that 19th pick, we might have a more entertaining draft show.
I forget who Bill went on with. So I'm not going to say it because I just can't remember where I saw this. But he did an interview maybe like a week and a half ago where he was being asked about the 19th overall pick, and he didn't downplay it per se, but he also didn't build it up like he normally, or like we've heard him build things up. Now, obviously, it's easy to build up the 4th overall pick from a year ago, but this year it was a lot more tempered talk from GMBA about 19th overall, which of course it's a lower pick, but he didn't have his salesman hat on as much as we've heard. And like, I don't know if anybody else would have caught it, but it just made me think, I wonder if he's not putting that extra frosting on 19 in case it is part of an exchange.
Well, Mike, we talked to him on the Nashcast this week. Great conversation with Tyson Nash and me filling in for you. So, Mike, if you haven't watched that before the draft, and all the folks out there, wherever they get their podcasts and on the Nashcast YouTube page, you can check it out. You got to pay attention to all 7 rounds, Friday and Saturday, Mike, because you're going to have guys from every round playing in the National Hockey League. You look at guys taken near 19, Ian Cole 18th, Nick Schmaltz 20th, Kyler Yamamoto 22nd. Second rounders, JJ Peterka, Sean Dursey, Kevin Stenlin. Third rounders, how about Jack McBain, Mike? Late rounders, Alexander Kerfoot 5th. John Marino was in the 6th round taken. Mackenzie Weegar 7th. Mike, the interesting thing about Kerfoot and Marino, 5th and 6th round draft picks, never played in the minor leagues, went straight to the NHL from Harvard. Both of them there, Mike. And Tanev, unsigned, went straight to the NHL along with Carconi and Nate Schmidt. So sometimes it's stuff that happens after In Schmidt and Tanev's case, coming out of college, Carcone, just a good old boy out of the OHL, Mike, going straight to the AHL. So you never know where these guys are going to come from. And we've been talking a lot about third and fourth rounders with Thomas Lavoie, Gabe Smith, and Gregor Bieber.
And I believe it was Kerfoot because he was a New Jersey draft pick, and they waited out his contract because he played. I think he played all 4 years at Harvard and signed with Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, coming out of school because his rights expired with New Jersey. So kind of another example of a circuitous route.
Yep. No, that's totally it. So, Mike, it seems like a while. You watch these guys coming out, you see the names at development camp where we'll be next week, but these guys are players, and for Utah, every single pick, Mike, is coming from the war room with a scout who is having the proudest day of his life.
And I'm so excited, not just for these 2 days, but for development camp too, because this is an organization that Bill's been in charge of now for the last few years. And we said this last episode, how Bill is obsessed with creating, or he's tried to create an organization that's obsessed with scouting. And there's still a lot of prospects, even from the Arizona days, that we're seeing kind of starting to matriculate up through the AHL or whatever league to have chances at the National Hockey League. And so development camp is going to be here right after the draft. So development camp is when, guys who have not yet turned pro, they come in and there's team bonding. They kind of get to know the coaches and the organization a little bit better, the development coaches, that is. And we get a chance to see them on the ice. And it's not super serious hockey, but it's a chance to see them in Mountain Blue. So that's going to be exciting as well right after the draft. And we'll have conversations with a few of those prospects as well. Probably won't be with the bigger names. We mentioned this a couple weeks ago. They're going to bring TJ Ginla up on, to the podium to address the media. We're going to pull aside some guys that aren't already talking to the media. And so some of the guys that maybe you haven't heard a lot from, or maybe that you don't even know, that have a chance to make an impact in this organization in the future. So keep in mind that's coming up right after the draft as well. And it's a rich prospect pool that the Mammoth have with all the work that Bill Armstrong and the scouting staff led by Daryl Plundowski have done.
Friday night, 5 p.m., Utah Mammoth YouTube page, Mammoth Plus for free. You can watch it in front of the subscriber paywall with your lead host, Mike Folta. Mike, have you noticed that you're the lead host and I'm going to be in the social media center because they figure, well, AD's always on his phone scrolling social media. Let's put that to good use. For paying him after all. So I'm going to be tracking what Mammoth Nation and the day-to-dayers have for us on social media.
You're a man of the people, and there is nobody better to be the mouthpiece to our fans and for our fans than you, my friend. So I can't wait for that. I hope to hear from our regulars like we always do on Mammoth Daily. I hope to also hear from a bunch of new folks who are tuning in, maybe parachuting in, and they haven't necessarily been with Daily the whole off season, the whole season, if you will. But maybe they're coming in and they're like, let me try this streaming thing. And maybe we add a few more day-to-dayers to our number. But it's going to be a ton of fun. And the draft starts with Toronto at 1. You mentioned Gavin McKenna, presumably the first overall. How about this, AD? Because I was kind of doing my notes on these top 4 picks, or top 4 or 5 picks, and the pick, there was a high chance that Toronto pick would have fallen to 5th or 6th. That's about where they finished in the NHL, 5th or 6th worst. If the pick would have fallen back to 5th place or to 6th place, then that pick would have belonged to Boston. There's a 56% chance of Toronto's pick falling into the hands of the Bruins. They had an 8.5% chance to get the first overall. Maple Leafs missed the playoffs once in 10 years. Boom, win the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. Sorry, Boston.
That's why you read all the fine print when you're making trades, Mike. Top 5 protected, top 10 protected. Florida, for instance, Mike, didn't make the playoffs, made that trade with Chicago, but in the Seth Jones deal, they were smart enough to put where they were protecting that pick, top 5, top 10 protected for the Florida Panthers, which they in turn traded to Ottawa, as we knew they would, but they didn't lose it in a technicality. Mike, speaking of development camp, we asked the folks to weigh in. Who do they want to hear from coming in on development camp on Mammoth Daily? Because we'll be talking to them and we'll be sharing all sorts of good stuff coming through. And Mike, how about the day-to-dayers weighing in on who they want to hear from? Rod checking in, says, thanks for keeping the content coming during the summer. He says, for prospects, aside from the top guys, it'd be fun to hear from the new signees over from Europe. Guys like Igor Borokov, Gregor Bieber, some good stuff that Utah has inked that is going to be getting ready to play pro hockey. Nate wants to hear from some goalies. Michael Robel, Jackson Stauber says, we always hear about the skaters, not much about the goalies. Brandon checks in, says, looking forward to the draft show. The Blue Marauder checks in. Mike, he is calling Utah to be drafting one of the players that we talked about on last week's show. And one of the guys we're going to hear from, Mike Morreale, talking about coming up in Ilya Morozov as well. So Mike Morreale coming up after we get to shout outs and more shout outs.
I believe it's Marauder, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Blue Marauder. I'm not going to let you have Gondola, and I'm not going to let you disrespect Blue Marauder like that.
What's it referencing?
A marauder? A marauder is like a buccaneer, like a pirate.
Oh, okay.
You pillage and steal.
Well, that's fair.
It's like you at Santorini's, basically. What's the pizza place you like? Cecilia Pizza. It's like you at Cecilia Pizza at the front desk. You're marauding. You just grab a slice and yank it out of the display case.
Well, as I always say, Mike, learn something new every day. So here we are. Corey from Peoria says, don't worry, AD. I still love you guys in the Mammoth. Just trying to give Mike some perspective on the bike riding.
Oh, friendly cyclist. Thanks, Corey.
Throw a shout out to Kevin, as always, one of our favorites. And want to throw a shout out to Athena checking in, Mike. She says, started collecting NHL cards just to feel something. She says overtime cards has been her bestie because it's kitty corner to the Mammoth Ice Center as well. And you just never know, Mike, what Mammoth players are going to pop by over there.
I had heard of overtime cards a few times because Liam O'Brien had done a signing there. Various players had been there doing signings, and I never really realized where it was. And I went over to Einstein's Bagels for a pre-skate. I think it was training camp last year, a pre-skate bagel. And kind of on my way over there, boom, I run into overtime cards. And on that trip to Einstein, Nick Olchek made me sign up for the rewards program. So Einstein has my phone number. They probably have my social security and every other important piece of information about me as well. But never thought I would have joined the Einstein Bagel program, but here we are.
I don't worry about that stuff anymore, Mike. You don't need to shred stuff. You don't need to worry about you can find anything anywhere.
You've given up.
You can find talking anywhere.
Talking about prospects, Vadim Moroz. Do you remember that name?
Yeah.
3rd round pick in 2023. Like, have we heard anything about him recently? Because 2 years ago, I'm looking at his hockey DB. He had 26 goals in the KHL. Now he's a bit of an older prospect at 22, but still 14 goals in the KHL this year. So his numbers dipped a bit. But when you're scoring more than 10 goals in the KHL, like that's worth a look, I think.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about development camp, Mike, is we can do our own scouting and check stuff out and see where we fare with with our scouting department and how they go. But I'm looking forward to seeing Vadim Moroz at prospect and development camp.
Yeah, he's a guy we'll have to do some more digging on, because I remember mentioning him briefly last year And it's like, guy scored 26 goals in the KHL. I mean, he's playing for Minsk. And that year, he led his team in goal scoring in one of the best leagues in the world. So a guy to keep tabs on, but a guy we haven't heard much about. So we'll try and get some intel on Vadim, another Belarusian. But yeah, interesting stuff because he played with who's the other Belarusian that was Yurkov? No, Igor. Who's Igor? Borakov. There we go. Igor Borakov. They were on a team together. We mentioned them earlier this summer, but yeah, we'll try and get some intel on those guys, and we'll talk to some of those guys as well. But the draft tonight, that's the big focus. Anything else on tonight's festivities, AD? It's decentralized again. It used to all be in one giant floor where looked like, Wall Street trading floor, everybody running around. Didn't you have to take your pick up to the stage with a piece of paper?
I don't know the process, but something like that. I just liked the tables. I just loved when they were panning across and you're like, oh, there's the Utah table. John Ferguson, David Ludwig, Bill Armstrong, Chris Armstrong, Ryan and Ashley Smith, remember from the Sphere in Vegas. It's just a who's who. I liked it. I like decentralized because that's what the NHL wants. But I liked looking around at the tables. And we'll be over at the Mammoth Ice Center, which for us is kind of like walking into school during summer vacation. We haven't been seen in weeks, in months, but there's our friendly security team. There's Zach and Gustavo and Phil. And you got you walk into school, you see your janitorial staff, your custodians, your secretary, your principal. We haven't been around, but they're still going in. They're still working hard every single day. Cafeteria people, just like us.
I feel like there's some really deep memories for you going back into school. Maybe some traumatic ones from what it sounds like. You're describing this in a lot of detail.
I don't remember anything, which who knows? Who knows? Not usually good.
Anything else before we get to Mike?
Let's get to Mike. I think the folks will really enjoy this. We got over a half hour with him. Lead draft analyst from NHL.com. He's got everything. He's got some great stories. He's got some great insight on Utah. We really dig in on the Mammoth, the past, the present, what's to come. He's got a grand scope of things on the NHL. So as you dive into the first round on Friday and rounds 2 through 7 on Saturday, I think you'll get some more insight from Mike Morreale.
Let's hear from the experts.
Excited to be joined now by Mike Morreale, senior draft writer for NHL.com. Mike, it's such a busy time for you, but we really appreciate you making some time for us here on Mammoth Daily and joining us out here in Utah. How's it going today?
It's going very good, guys. I really appreciate you having me on. It's always great to talk puck before the NHL draft. It's like I view it as my kid in the candy store moment because I'm putting together all the work throughout the course of the year, going to tentpole events for the CHL games, for the All-American Prospects games, checking out these kids, and that's the good thing about the prospects, guys, is the fact that you have different stories every year. And while I love and enjoy the NHL and covering the NHL, the opportunity to get different storylines and different features and learn about different family lives and what's going on with these kids is always something that's very intriguing and interesting to me, and I love it.
Has there been one that's jumped out at you so far, Mike, as you talk to these different athletes?
Yeah, to be honest with you, there has. I mean, there's actually a few, but the one that really stands out to me off the top is goaltender William Lassell. He plays for Blainville-Beaubriand in the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League. He's number 7 on Central Scouting's final rankings of North American goaltenders. He's 100% deaf in his left ear and 50% deaf in his right. He refers to this as his superpower. He's the eldest of 3 siblings, and he was the only one born with hearing loss. And He was diagnosed when he was 3 years old. He started playing hockey as a defenseman when he was 7 and was the one who could always be counted on to be that shot blocker. So he transitioned to goalie, figured out ways to adapt using different signals with his defensemen in a louder rink. It's harder to give calls. So he'd do stick taps or make eye contact with his defenseman, little things that'll help in a loud building. And he's a lot better now at reading lips. So that's helped him greatly. But he started the season and Rimouski was traded to Blainville because they were going on that real nice run there in the Q playoffs. They fell a little short in the semifinals to that powerhouse Moncton, but LaSalle could be in that 5th, 6th, 7th round range. And certainly he's one that I'm going to be watching for sure. The Ruck twins too, Mike, is another interesting story. Liam and Marcus Ruck. I mean, we had them on our podcast, NHL Draft Class, myself and my colleague Adam Kimmelman during the combine. Just a great duo to talk to. Telepathic, right? You would expect that with twins. Liam being the goal scorer and Marcus was the playmaker. Marcus being the left-hander, Liam the right-hander. So another interesting story. Then the other one that really struck me during the combine was when we were talking with Gavin McKenna and learning about his grandfather, Joe Mason. Mason's background as a survivor of First Nations residential schools kind of gives McKenna a real good perspective, and it kind of tells the story of why he was able to persevere in rough moments at Penn State this year. The system that Joe Mason was in that First Nations separated First Nations children from their homes for decades. And the one story that stuck out with McKenna was when Mason was a young kid. He was on a school trip and was left out in the mountains pretty much to survive on his own. It wasn't worth the price of gas to get him flown back into town. So he had to survive on his own for 3 or 4 days in the mountains. And McKenna couldn't even imagine, being in that type of situation. He has a tattoo on his arm, representing his grandfather and how much of an inspiration he is. So just another great story that you learn, you never know of, but you learn when you start talking to these kids and hear about their family life and what they've gone through.
Mike, wow. Gavin McKenna going from major juniors to Penn State, as you mentioned, and during the course of the year, right, there was some back and forth, some up and down on his adjustment to the college ranks and how that would translate to the NHL. But it seems like, we get into March, April, the combine, and now just waiting for that first pick to be called by Toronto. It seems like he's back in that spot. We've seen some good ones over the last 3 years and really every year. Connor Bedard, Macklin Celebrini, Matthew Schaefer. What about Gavin McKenna makes him number one and really solidifies him back into that spot?
Yeah, Adrian, when I watch him, I just think Patrick Kane when I watch Gavin McKenna. Game is really driven by vision, creativity, processes the play at high levels, handles the puck with ease, very consistent, makes the difficult pass look rather routine, can shoot the puck really well, even if he doesn't shoot it enough. I mean, his coaches harp on him and some teammates as well. Shoot the puck more, Gavin, shoot the puck more. But he has a great toolkit here. We've seen growth from players like Connor Bedard, who early in his career faced questions about his skating by NHL standards, but improved it significantly through development and maturity. And McKenna is in a comparable position where added speed, strength, physicality should come naturally with time and training. And the most important takeaway, Adrian, and the hardest attribute to develop, hockey sense, vision, creativity, puck skill, that's already there in McKenna's game. So those are the traits that separate elite players, and he already has them in abundance.
You look at the guy that most people think is going number 2 or maybe 3 in Stenberg, the winger out of Sweden. And I haven't had a chance to watch him, Mike, but reading up on him, it sounds like he's kind of a bulletproof prospect there at the top of the board where he doesn't really have any deficiencies. What kind of player are, maybe the San Jose Sharks at 2 or the Vancouver Canucks at 3 getting with Stenberg, assuming Toronto goes with McKenna?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right, Mike? Right there, it's like, uh, in my opinion, I do think McKenna is going to go 1 to Toronto, but I think San Jose holds all the cards on how the remainder of this draft might go, depending on if they're going to go Stenberg, if they're going to go defensemen, and we know there are a lot of elite defensemen available in this draft. But Stenberg, what a season in the Swedish Hockey League! Not easy to do what he accomplished. He recorded the third most points in a single SHL season by a draft eligible player. Only the Sedin twins had more. He had a 10-game point streak at one point in the SHL. I like the comparison. I've heard it, or I've heard this comparison, and I could see it myself. A little bit of a Zach Parise in Stenberg and what he brings to the table. Is that type of player that really gets under the skin of opposing players, not because he's a Brad Marchand type of yapper, but he just does little things, knows how to get under the skin with his stick work, with maybe some of the physicality and play that he has, not only along the boards, but in the middle of the ice and how he's able to take away time and space. Real special kid and player, has the ability to kind of slow the game down to his preference. And we saw that a lot at the World Junior Championships. And also he really played well for Sweden at the World Championships as well. I know Sweden didn't perform well there, but Stenberg was made quite an impression, earning, I believe it was over 18 minutes a game. And obviously there were NHL players in that tournament as well. So hockey sense is really what sticks out when I think of Stenberg. I would imagine he's going to go top 3, top 4 in this draft. But then again, as I mentioned earlier, it's kind of like San Jose holds all the cards where the rest of this draft might go.
So the draft starts at 2 is what we're hearing, but there's a lot of intrigue at 3 because the Vancouver Canucks made Manny Malhotra their head coach. His son Caleb is a top prospect in this draft. So is this a case where if the Sharks go for a defenseman at 2, Vancouver takes the coach's son at 3, that Stenberg is a Chicago Blackhawk at 4? Is that as far as he'll go?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the way drafts are built, right, Mike? It's almost like you're always looking for those centermen and D. That's basically how most drafts and teams want to build through the draft. And it's just crazy that we have 2 left wings in McKenna and Stenberg who could go 1-2, 1-3, whatever it might be. But for me personally, if this draft goes the way I think I'm seeing it and hearing it, I think you got McKenna. I think you got Chase Reed, the high-end defenseman from the Sioux at number 2 to San Jose. And then when Vancouver gets on the board at number 3, I could see them taking the centerman, not because, and that's a great story with being the coach's son and Manny being there. But look, Malhotra in my eyes is the best two-way center of this draft. Look, it worked well with the Twins in Vancouver. We all know that, with Henrik and Daniel. You saw this year, even in Carolina, that the Stanley Cup champ, Skylar Brindamore, played for his father, Rod, for a few games there. So I think Vancouver fans are a little, don't know what to think, having a son be on the team with the father. But this is a different breed with the pedigree that Caleb has here and the type of game he had. A tremendous two-way force. He'll score the points. He'll win faceoffs in crucial moments. He wants to be on the ice when the game is on the line. And he comes from that athletic family with his dad playing over 990 games. He has his uncle Steve was a pretty famous NBA basketball player. So this is a player that rises to the occasion, Mike, and no matter where he goes, he wants to prove that he is that type of player. There's no doubt about it. He wants to prove that he's the top centerman of this draft. And I think at worst, even if it didn't materialize, what we saw with Caleb do this year in Brantford, where all the points, all the goals that he had this year, and even the real strong playoff that he had, at worst, he's a 2C. He's a second line centerman. So I think all the ingredients are there for Vancouver to pull the trigger on Caleb Malholtra.
Mike, let's skip ahead to pick number 19, shall we? That's where Utah's selecting after, years of drafting players like Caleb Denoye, Tija Ginla, Bill Armstrong taking Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther now at 19 with the group advancing into the playoffs. Where do we go from 4 to 19 in terms of the field and how things spread out and compartmentalize from that point on?
Yeah, to me, when you look at what Utah has been able to do, in previous drafts, I think the difference between Utah remaining a wild card squad and challenging for a divisional playoff spot is depth. Really, Utah has a real good young core, talented scorers, some veteran presence there, but maybe one or two more middle six scorers who could also help on special teams might be, just what the doctor ordered for the Mammoth. And, when I look at the players that might be available in that, I guess in that range for Utah, you look at guys like Nikita Klepov, a guy that really has had a lot of goals this year, a lot of scoring upside, was the Ontario Hockey League Rookie of the Year, excels in finding that open ice, owns a dangerous one-timer, consistently creating scoring chances. A guy like that would fit in well in that middle six role. Ilya Morozov, who really scored well at the scouting combine, really had a real presence about him too. He plays at Miami University, another NCAA player, big left-handed centerman, left-hand shot. He's born in Moscow. He has a real good defensive awareness about him, high-end work ethic. And the other thing too, I know that Bill Armstrong always looks for those taller, those big size players, and Morozov goes about 6'3", 200, which kind of fits the mold of a Mammoth type player. JP Hurlbert from Kamloops is another one from the Western Hockey League. A blend of speed, skill, hockey sense that kind of impacts the game in all three zones. Goes about 6 foot, 6'1", 185, 90 pounds. Can also play center. Led WHL rookies with 97 points this year in 68 games. And he's committed to the University of Michigan in 26-27, where he'll kind of refine his game there. So there are a few players in this range here. I do think the draft is pretty deep in that regards. There's good quality here of players that could play a significant number of games. Maybe not play soon, where you get in that top 10 range. And when I say soon, I may probably next year or the year after. But maybe in that 2 to 3 year range, these players might be ready to go.
It looks like a lot of folks out there think there's going to be this run on defensemen kind of in the first half of the first round. Where do you see the tiers, I guess, of this draft? And where do you see maybe a drop off? I'm guessing it's before 19, but I'm curious how far back the Mammoth are from kind of that first and second tier of the draft.
Yeah. So overall, Mike, I think the draft is expected to deliver an average level of depth. The projections suggest roughly 60 to 65 players who could go on to play from averages that I've kind of figured out between 200 and 250 NHL games. So that puts the class solidly in line with a typical draft year in terms of quantity. Where the group could separate itself, this particular draft class could separate itself is the blue line. The true strength of this class is the defensemen in my eyes, especially those selected in the top 15. And there are some of those mobile, maybe undersized puck movers if Utah was looking to get one of these players, and there are three of them right off the bat I know that are high in quality. Tommy Blyle is one player that has been shooting up draft rankings from Moncton. Xavier Villeneuve, Another one from the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League, a little bit undersized, but has that kind of that Quinn Hughes type effect on people. And Ryan Lynn from Vancouver is another player in the dub, a little undersized. Maybe goes, I don't know, even know you consider 5'11", 5'10" undersized, but that's the range he's at. But so quick off transition, those three players. So traditionally, the strength of the draft is driven by the middle and on defense, as I mentioned earlier. While this year may not be center heavy at the top, especially since we have two left wings there, it has the potential to stand out because of its defensive talent. And that, if that group reaches its projected ceiling, this draft could be remembered as one one that's built its value from the back end out for sure.
As you look at, the draft going, into rounds 2, 3, and 4, and over the last couple of years, the Mammoth have drafted some players who've already got signed on entry level contracts, like Gabe Smith and Gregor Bieber, Thomas Lavoie. What have you seen from Utah in terms of their tendencies, the way that they pluck guys in those rounds, and that they've been able to sign? Have you seen an identity that the Mammoth are going for? We've noticed some size and some personality traits.
Yeah, it seems to me, Adrian, they've always been, and this is even before Bill moved over to Arizona, Utah. He was always one for that best player available, building heavily through the middle of the ice, targeting size, the high compete, the elite skating, their core draft tendencies and philosophies might also include like the puck skills and elite centers. You look at guys like TJ Ginla, number 6 in 2024, Caleb Desnoyers, number 4 in 25. They look for playmaking, that speed, the high IQ scoring ability. The size and reach is also there as well. When you look at some of these players, those prospects with those big frames, 6'4" or taller, Will Scahan, Maverick Lamoureux, these type guys. The high motor is another one that Bill loves. So that off ice character is always there, and that's traditionally for most teams. The aggressive trading and flexibility is always there. Armstrong is highly active on the draft floor, it seems. The front office is actively traded up for specific players, moving up in the first round to draft Cole Boydeen, and they frequently leverage their deep pool of mid-draft prospects or capital to make lateral trades. So um, those are some of the things that I've seen in Utah over the years to at the draft table during the draft. But usually, Bill has done a real nice job in building the prospect pool here. There's not a lot that he needs, and as I said earlier, it's just a matter of tweaking and maybe gaining some of that depth. And at this stage, because he has so many good young prospects in the pool, that maybe it's a matter of just trading, gaining some more assets that are already NHL ready to even take a step forward than what they were able to do this year.
Can we go back to the last maybe couple drafts here? Because, you mentioned Ginla, Caleb Desnoyers, Cole Baudouin. Like, when you see those picks, do you see, like, are those prototypical Utah picks? Were you surprised by Utah going in those directions? And what did you think of those selections where they were at the time by the Mammoth or the hockey club?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mike. But I think with those particular picks, and I can honestly say, that's where we get to the point of best available, because I do think those players in those spots were best available players. They weren't real positional needs that Bill was going out for. So, you look at Ginla, a real budding power forward, 6 foot, 195 pounds, maybe not the size that Bill usually goes for, maybe some bigger players you'd want, but you look at the skill level, the pedigree that Teach has, and what this player could be like. He's going to score goals and he's going to make plays in the NHL, and that was certainly a player in that range that was on my radar that Utah would take. Desnoyers, number 4 last season. Here you go, 6'2", 173, tremendous two-way mind, great hockey sense, real good hands. He added strength as well this season, I felt. One of those top young players in the queue as a rookie 2 seasons ago. He was regularly playing 20 minutes a game. So Bill also likes those minute munchers. If you're going to be a middle six forward, or if you're playing D, he likes those guys that are going to, be in the fight for long periods of time, long stretches of time, and in key critical moments of games. So Desnoyers to me, a top six pivot, smart, detailed, well-rounded, real good habits, real competitive. So I love that pick as well. And Bodine, excuse me, from Barrie, the centerman there, 6'2", 211. He was number 20 in the 20 range, I believe, in 2024, maybe 23, 24, I believe the pick was. But yeah, another player that's impressed because they traded back to get him. So knowing they get him at 24, he had him targeted. So good for Bill in doing that. But another player, Cole plays that 200-foot game. He's real hard to play against because of the size, has shutdown capabilities, big, versatile center, good hands, first couple of good steps when he gets on the rush. He's going to have a long career in the NHL, and I'm sure Bill had that in mind when he made the pick.
What is your philosophy there? Because a lot of times in that part of the draft, you're getting a player who maybe has a couple traits, but not all of them. Are you taking a big swing on maybe one of these tools of your guys, or are you going to try and maybe pick up one of the more complete prospects at 19? And then can you give us a name just for fun that you think the Mammoth might go for?
Yeah, so look, at 19, I'm going to stick to my guns on what I said earlier. Like, I just think Bill's going to take best available here.
Yeah.
Look, because the player at 19, let's face it, he's not going to be playing next year. So you want to just kind of shoot for the stars. Now, teams with multiple picks might think differently in this range. If a club, for instance, is picking in that top 13, 14 range and then has another pick outside, then they maybe, swing for the fences with a player that they may think could have a real good upside at some point, maybe 2 years from now. But I think for the Mammoth, and if they don't trade this pick and gain further assets, as we discussed, I think they'll stick with this one. Look for best available. And in my eyes, I think if he's there, the centerman from Miami, Ilya Morozov, who I had going to the Mammoth at the 19th pick in my most recent mock draft. I just think it's very difficult. I mean, because if he's there, Mike, I think it's a steal, because I do think Morozov is in the top 15, top 20 range. But if he can fall to them at 19, I think that's a solid pick. Big physical left-handed shot. As I mentioned, he goes about 6'3", 200. Could just fit in that role, whether it's a number 2 or number 3 down the road. He's just got maybe a couple more years of development in him in college, maybe after next season, since he was a freshman this year and really played extraordinarily well there. One more season, and he might be ready to make the jump to the NHL. But good head on his shoulders. And the funny thing about Morozov, too, that we learned at the Combine was that as I think when he was 6 or 7 years old, he did preteen MMA combat fighting, which was just kind of it wasn't anything where you're swinging away at other 7-year-olds, but it was just like tumbling on mats and just learning how to move your arms and kick your legs, that type of thing. But he laughed and chuckled about it. Says, yeah, I'm into the MMA and I used to do this when I was younger. So a lot of fun. He's a real good glue guy in the locker room too in Miami. That his teammates love him. I just think Morozov would be a great fit there for Utah.
Okay, I lied. I do have one more because you mentioned Morozov. But how do you evaluate the guys who are playing in college now? Because college hockey's on the rise. You're seeing a lot of guys make the jump from the CHL to college hockey. How do you evaluate those guys, especially guys who maybe have only played 1 year at the NCAA level?
Yeah, so I'll use Gavin McKenna as an example, Mike. So Gavin McKenna, tore up the Western Hockey League at Medicine Hat for 2+ seasons, right? Scored 150 points last season. This year, he wants to make the jump to Penn State. Look, obviously, I know there's NIL involved, there's money involved, but he didn't have to do that. He could have scored 170, 180 points this year and then earn the big paycheck knowing that he was going to be the slam dunk #1 pick. We wouldn't be having any discussions about McKenna being #1 if he scored 180 points at Medicine Hat this year. But he made the jump to Penn State. He had to learn how to, build his body in the weight room. This was something he never did in the Canadian Hockey League during the week. Then on the weekend, you play games. So it was a learning process for him. That's what all these first year NCAA players maybe coming over from the CHL had to go to this year. And that's why you maybe didn't see the high point production that a lot of people thought that they would have. I mean, let's face it, like McKenna was under the microscope all season, right? Like the kid couldn't do anything right. Like he would have a rough day, a rough weekend. Oh, he's done. He's finished. He shouldn't go #1 in the draft. But then we saw like he played with his peers at the World Junior Championship. Led Team Canada in scoring there. They won a bronze medal. After that, came back. Was kind of accustomed to what he needed to do to get his body acclimated to the, playing against the bigger foes on the weekends, and did that, scored 33 points, I believe it was, in his last 18 college hockey games. So really picked up the pace and proved to himself and to the, college hockey world that, yeah, this is a legitimate prospect that's going to be drafted and maybe he should go #1. And I think a lot of people think that, but I think that's what you're seeing in college hockey. And let me tell you, Mike, college hockey was the best it's ever been that I've seen in my years of doing this. And I've been with the league since 2008, doing the prospects. College hockey is at its peak best right now. And there are more players coming in now. So it's only going to get better.
Fantastic stuff, Mike. Thanks for your time. So gracious. We appreciate you squeezing us in here, and we'll keep following you at NHL.com, on Twitter at Mike Morreale NHL, and we'll see you on NHL Network, I'm sure, as well, coming up here in the coming days and as we head into 26, 27. Thanks for your time and just unbelievable insight. We really, really appreciate it.
Great, guys. I was just glad to join you, and best of luck to Utah. Have a lot of fun at the draft. I don't know. Are you guys going to the draft?
We've got a draft show. Yeah. So we're going to be covering it. We've got a live draft show. So God help us on that. But we're going to be dialed into it. We're going to be covering it. And we'll look for Morozov at 19. Is that how you say it?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Ilya Morozov. There you go. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it very much.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Great insight from our now good friend in front of the program, Mike Morreale. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Mike Morreale NHL on X. So loved every bit of that, AD, and could have done way more. And it is our plan to get some draft experts on post-draft as well. Transparency is a core value for us. We want to talk to draft experts about how the draft went. Anybody can make predictions. We want to go to the experts to evaluate how they saw the draft go afterwards. So we'll get some insight on that. But AD, the draft tomorrow, I did want to unload a few more notes that I had stored away just at the top of the draft. A lot of the storylines you may hear, and you'll probably hear regurgitated by me again on our draft show tomorrow. But the day-to-dayers are getting them first. Mentioned Toronto. How about this for Gavin McKenna? Would only be the 5th NHL player ever drafted to be born in the Yukon territory. So he's from way up north in Canada, and there's only been a few other players ever who have been born in the Yukon territory who have been drafted into the NHL. He's got First Nations roots as well, and that's a big part of his story. There's a lot of great content on YouTube about that, and Mike got into that a little bit as well. How about San Jose, Adrian? If they make the second overall pick, they don't trade it. If they make the pick, they would be the 5th franchise in NHL history to make a top 2 pick in 3 straight drafts. Can you name the last team to do that? Make a top 2 pick in 3 straight drafts.
Is it in the lottery era, Mike? Because that would be some bad luck. Maybe some good luck.
Yes, it is.
It is in the lottery era.
When does the lottery era start?
2005.
Yes.
Wow.
There is one that, how about this? There's one that straddles that date. And there's another team more recently that has done it a few years more recent than that with plenty of current players. Plenty of high-profile players.
Well, Edmonton got the first overall pick a number of years in a row. Tampa Bay had some tough times, but I don't remember anybody there taking that high. Montreal?
You were on it. Edmonton, 2010 through 2012. Can you guess the players?
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
That's one.
Taylor
one of them.
Hall.
Yes, that's the hard one, I think. The other one is a bust.
Nail Yakupov. Nail the guy. He's not here anymore.
God bless you.
Hasn't been here in 15 years. Nail Yakupov.
Yes. You got it. You nailed it. Pittsburgh also did so 4 straight years from 2003 to 2006. Marc-Andre Fleury, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, Jordan Staal as well was a second overall pick, I believe. Of course, the Sharks last year took Michael Misa second overall, and the year before that, Macklin Celebrini first overall. Vancouver drafting at 3 AD. They had a 25.5% chance to get the first overall pick, but well over a 50% chance to get the third overall pick. So Vancouver fans are upset they didn't get the first overall pick, but the odds of them getting that pick are much less likely than they would be drafting where they are. They are in the top 3 for the first time since 1999. Remember when Brian Burke pulled the strings and finagled the draft to get Henrik Sedin and Daniel Sedin at 2 and 3. Now, they took Daniel first and then Henrik at 3. The Chicago Blackhawks drafting 4th overall. Second worst team in the NHL this season, so they fell back a couple spots. It's their 4th straight season picking in the top 4, and it's the first time since that Pittsburgh run of Fleury, Malkin, Crosby, and Staal. And the New York Rangers at 5th overall, the last time they were drafting in the top 5 was 2020. They took Alexis Lafreniere, 1st overall. The year before that, 2019, they took Kaapo Kakko, 2nd overall. The Rangers had a 2nd overall and a 1st overall pick in back-to-back years, and they got Kaapo Kakko and Alexis Lafreniere. Not all drafts are created equal.
Neither are the people that pick them.
Here I am trying to play fair ball for our New York Rangers fans and friends.
You were staying, painting it with a broad brush, not necessarily mentioning names or teams. Me either.
Alexis Lafreniere is a good player and was, if I'm remembering this correctly, was maybe not consensus, but it was an overwhelming majority that he was going to be the number 1 overall pick that year.
Yeah, and he's a nice player. He's a nice player.
But 1st and 2nd overall, you'd hope to have 2 guys that make it a little bit bigger of an impact.
Yep.
All right, let's get to our local hockey segment.
All right, Mike. Hockey around Utah. Our chance to use this brand new graphic. How about this?
That's pretty snazzy.
Look at that.
You make that in paint?
State of Utah carved out. Hockey around Utah. Wanted to give the folks some updates about some stuff going on around the Mammoth Ice Center and throughout the state. First of all, Mammoth Week, Mike, looking late August, early September for Mammoth Week, taking you out of summer into Labor Day weekend. Some fun stops throughout the state. Again, we're going to go east, almost to Colorado. We're going to go south, almost to Arizona. We're going to go north up to one of your favorite places, Mike. And then we're going to go just a little south of that place to another one of your favorite places. And we'll have Mammoth Ice Center, a big party going to be involved for Mammoth Week. So there we go, Mike. Mammoth Week coming late August, early September to end the summer, headed into Labor Day weekend. I think that was one of our highlights of the summer last year. So we're just waiting for it.
It was awesome. It was also a little earlier in the summer.
A little hotter.
A little hotter.
Yeah.
Adrian, I've got news. I've got weddings. Not my own, but I've got weddings. Multiple. Bookending. Mammoth Week. My status is questionable. Questionable with a full body injury. Well, we will have to see what my schedule is. And I'm when I saw the dates, I was like, oh, it was just a kick to the stomach because it was a highlight of the summer. So much fun. Was getting in fights on the ice with Nick Olchek. Was teaching. I was like, quote unquote, coaching with Tyson Nash. That was hilarious. Got some great content out of that. But also, like, I'm out there as like a coach. I'm in like a windbreaker and like the tracksuit, you know, so I look like a coach. But anyone who sees me skating is like, the learn to play kids are better than this guy. So I was really just pushing pucks, but it was still fun to be out there. You getting your face painted in Logan last year was awesome, followed by our hike to the wind caves.
Yes.
There was exploration. There was artistic expression. There was everything at Mammoth Week last season.
So there we go. Can't wait for it. The first time dates being announced, approved or not, right here on Mammoth Daily. Mike, they sent an email. We checked our email. We checked our email. I hope everybody's happy. Hey, Mike, how about...
It wasn't like an internal memo, was it?
I don't know.
I say roll it.
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep rolling. Mike, next Learn to Plays coming your way. July and August, mammothiceCenter.com for all the details. Kids ages 5 through 11 can get involved in Learn to Play. It's a blast of a program. Adult leagues, we still are taking free agents, mammothiceCenter.com, Mike. So if you're looking for a team, we have some free agent options available. And youth hockey stuff, Mike. We've got our
what level of free agents are they looking for? Are they looking for like a face-off try-hard guy who's gonna bring the speaker for the locker room and maybe run the tunes?
Best available player, I think.
Oh shoot! Okay,
just like the draft.
Counts me out.
Keep your eyes peeled for our latest info on the 3v3 and 3v3v3 ice hockey coming up September 19th. Our annual tournament there, Mike. So mammothiceCenter.com is where you get all the information. Have fun, everybody.
Lot of programming in Sandy at the Utah Mammoth Ice Center. It's my dream to like have like a Memorial Cup for Utah, like all the men's leagues across the state have this tournament at the Utah Mammoth Ice Center. Like, could you imagine?
Love it.
Maybe then, like, you know, Cooley and Gunther are walking in right as a goal goes off my shin pad and into the back of the net. And they're like, yeah, that away, Mike. That guy, he interviews us sometimes. We know who that is. That's the dream right there.
I hope they'd notice that, Mike. I hope they wouldn't just walk by and glance over and not even notice.
In reality, like when I wake up from this daydream, like what actually happens is I'm playing, they're walking by, and like I fan on a one-timer or like hit a rut and fall down in the corner, messing up my crossovers, and they just like, you know, keep walking. I look up from the ice like all wet and snow covered. Like, did they see that, guys?
They're like, the Learn to Play guys are having a lot of fun over there. Happy for
That's
them.
Right. That's right. They're like, he doesn't have enough equipment on. He needs more protection than that.
Don't beat yourself up. You're fine, Mike. You're fine.
I have a great time. Time.
It's all that matters. You heard Michael Carcone. That's the most important thing. Have fun.
Yeah, except Michael Carcone is telling his 5-year-old son that. I'm a 28-year-old fourth line beer league center, like with a 10:45 puck drop at Ogden and a 35-minute drive back home.
Oh, that's that is quite a.
That's for the love of the game. That's for the love of the game right there.
That
Wouldn't
is something
trade it
for the system.
Would not trade it. So, well, we got the draft coming up tomorrow, guys. Round 1 is tomorrow, Friday, 2 through 7. On Saturday, it starts in the morning. You can catch it on NHL Network. But enjoy the festivities. Keep your tabs on your phone because we say it every year. The draft is where a lot of trades happen. It's true. It didn't happen a lot last year. Could very well happen this year. Right after the draft, we have free agency starting July 1. And even before that, in between free agency and the end of the draft, we have development camp in Sandy as well. Those are real hockey players playing at the Utah Mammoth Ice Center. They will not be embarrassing themselves. They will be putting on a case for why they should be on this team and why they should be invited to training camp as well. But AD, can't wait for it. And we will be on the YouTube channel with everybody coming up tomorrow.